So you're gonna need 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 teaspoons of dry active yeast, 1.5 cups of warm water, and 4 cups of flour. Now you're going to take your dry active yeast and you're going to put that into your warm water. And then you're going to stir it up, and once it's whisked in as good as possible, I can never whisk it really well, but you're going to let it sit for about 3 to 4 minutes to let the yeast activate. So this is how your yeast and water should look after you let it sit for about 3 to 4 minutes. So I just added in the olive oil, and then I'm going to stir it up really well, and then it's going to be a pretty, thick consistency, and then we're going to add it to the flour. So now here we have our flour. I'm going to add in the 1 teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt, and I'm going to stir it in, mix it in all real good. And then after that, I'm going to make a well in the center of the flour, and then I will pour in my yeast olive oil water mix. So you're basically going to use your wooden spoon to combine these ingredients until you cannot use your spoon any longer. So until you can make like somewhat of a ball shape, then you can stop using your spoon, and then it's going to be time to use your hands. So now my dough looks hand ready, so I'm going to get a little bit of flour on my hands and I'm going to frisbee it onto a clean surface. So I'm just putting it on my counter, and now I'm getting the dough out of the bowl, and now it's time to knead the dough. So I'm not an expert at this, but I put a little, flour on my hand so it doesn't stick. And what I do is I press the dough together so that it's not crumbling anymore, and then I fold it and I'll press it, fold it, press it, fold it, press it. So that's pretty much all I do. And then once it starts, becoming one, then I'll start pulling it and folding it, pressing it, pulling it, just like that, folding it and pressing it. And I actually did this for about 5 minutes. So I'm not going to show you 5 minutes of me kneading the dough, but you need to do it for about 5 good minutes. So I felt like my dough was kneaded enough, so I got a knife and I cut it into four different sections, and this dough makes 4 nice sized pizzas. So once I cut it into 4, I just rolled them into a ball like so. And then I got a pan and I just poured some olive oil onto it, and I just smeared it around with my hands. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the dough on the pan, but I rolled it around, and you'll see why. So after I add the dough and it's, rolled in the olive oil, I'm going to get a clean towel and I'm going to put water on it, wring it out, and I will put the towel over the dough because you don't want the dough to dry out. And I let it sit for about 1.5 hours so that the dough can rise. So while we're waiting for the dough to rise, I got a shallot, I minced it up, and I also minced up 4 garlic cloves, which you see right there. And then I put 1 teaspoon of grapeseed oil onto a pan. Once it got hot, I put the shallots and the garlic cloves onto there, well, the minced garlic, and then I just mixed it up really well. Now, I was cooking mine a little too high, so I added just a little more grapeseed oil. Then I added in 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. So what's in this Italian seasoning is oregano, basil, and that's pretty much it. And then I added 1 can of tomato sauce, organic tomato sauce, and then of course salt to taste. And once it's, hot, you can turn it off and then just let the ingredients gel together. So it's been about an hour and a half, and as I remove the damp towel from the dough, you can see that the dough has doubled in size, and that's perfect. So now I'm just going to knead the dough, and I'm going to start forming it into pizza shape. Now, I'm not a pro at this. I just started making pizza about 4 months ago, so don't judge me. So the technique I pretty much use is I begin to pull away from the center, and then once I feel like the center of the dough is kind of, thin just a little bit, then I just, start working my way outwards. So throughout this process, you're going to have to occasionally put your dough down, flatten it, roll it out with your roller, and then proceed to go with the edge pull technique that I'm doing. Once the dough is thin like this, they're pretty much done. So now it's time for the fun part. Add as much sauce as you want onto your dough. Now, mind you, I put the crust already onto a pan that I'm going to pop in the oven. Make sure you do that so you're not having a difficult time trying to transfer your pizza crust onto the pan. I like to have minced garlic on my pizza. Dress your pizza however you want to. I put basil on mine. I love basil, so I make sure I put that on there. And then I also love red onion, so I sliced up red onion. I put it all over my pizza. Like I said before, if you don't like any of these ingredients, it's your pizza. Put whatever vegetables you want. And then I also sliced up some bell pepper, and I put bell pepper all over it as well. And last but not least, I put mushrooms on my pizza, and I tried to crumble them because these were sliced pretty thick, and I didn't, I just decided to crumble them onto my pizza. Now it's time to add the cheese. I put the cheese on top because as you know, this is dairy-free cheese, so dairy-free cheese tends to take a little longer to melt, so I put it on top. And then after I put the cheese on top, I didn't show this, but I sprinkled a little bit of salt onto it. It's just a habit. I just put a little bit of salt, and I melted a tablespoon of butter, and I just, lightly dressed the edges of the crust with butter. And I love oregano, so I got some dried oregano and I sprinkled it all over my pizza. So my oven was preheated to 375 degrees, and this is it while it's cooking in the oven. So whenever you feel like the cheese has melted good enough and the crust looks pretty much done, then you could take your pizza out. It took my pizza about 12 minutes to cook, maybe 15. And there it is when it's finished. The mushrooms look a little, brown, and the cheese is melted, and it smells so good. And there it is. This pizza is also great when it's accompanied with a Greek salad, and I have the link for that recipe in the description box below. Thanks for watching.